All right, he's Frank Schwab. I'm Jason Fitz. You know the deal. It's Sunday night. The games are all done. We are basically at the halfway point of the season. And Frank, we're going to break them all down. But let's just, as we started, I really thought, brother, as we were watching Sunday Night Football go down, I don't know why I went full Hulk Hogan, brother. But I really felt like when I was watching the Sunday night game, I thought, man, we're going to be able to start this thing early. This thing's a blowout. Yeah. Like the 49ers are taking care of business. They were absolutely destroying the Cowboys until, just like they have all year, they sort of took the foot off the gas in the fourth quarter. Mm-hmm. The Cowboys made a huge comeback. This thing got tight. San Francisco gets a big win.
And if you look at this as like a microcosm of both teams in a bad way, we saw the worst of both teams through some of this game. That, you know, like you said, that the 49ers just leaving the back door wide open. Hey, come on in. You want to steal a win? You can come grab it. And the Cowboys, and specifically Dak Prescott, saying, nah, we're good. We don't need that tonight. They just had a disastrous third quarter where they got nothing going. And a halftime lead turned into a 17-point deficit, seemingly in a blink of an eye. It was like, you just looked up and you're like, whoa, what happened to this game? All of a sudden, it's a blowout. They rally. Look, I think Dak Prescott's one of those guys, and I wrote about this. It's almost like Tony Romo, where just because he's a Cowboys quarterback, he's just going to always get more criticism than he deserves. He's a very good quarterback. Everybody likes just piling on him for whatever reason. This season, he deserves this criticism. He is now the highest paid player in NFL history. And he is not playing up to that standard, or even close. He's not even playing up to his own standard of the rest of his career. His play has really fallen off. He is not good right now. He has had multiple interceptions in 4 games already this year. He had a terrible interception in the third quarter this game, where I don't even know what he's seeing. And even there's a pass late in the fourth quarter where Chris Collins was saying, what could he possibly be seeing? He just throws it to 3 49ers players, and Fred Warner batted it down because he couldn't catch it. But it's just Prescott's not seeing anything well. He seems to be pressing. He doesn't have a lot of help. It's CD and nobody else really. But he is not playing well. And when you sign that check that's giving you $60 million a year, or we sign a contract that's giving you $60 million a year, you have to play to a certain standard. As Dak is nowhere near that standard. There's many things going wrong with the Cowboys, Fitz. I get that. But a main reason is the highest paid player in the NFL is not playing anywhere near that.
There's an element for me. We'll talk later about Kansas City and some of the Mahomes issues. But it's an element for me where, as much as Mahomes at times this year has struggled, and we've been honest about that, what you know is that there are going to be 1 or 2 times in the game that Mahomes has the chance to save a drive, to save a play, to save a touchdown, and ultimately those are the things that save games. And that's what he does magically. That's what's so frustrating is Mahomes can have a bad game and still make the 3 or 4 plays you have to make to win. What's frustrating is that Dak doesn't seem capable this year of making those 3 or 4 plays. And that, to me, is the wildest part of it, because once this game gets close, it's like, all right, this game got close. Go out and make that play. Go out and be that Mahomes. Go out and have that moment. You don't have to do it every time, but man, you got to do it a few times. And tonight was a perfect example. You're right. Like, there were a couple bad picks. There were a couple moments there that you're just scratching your head. And also late in the game when this thing got close and you really just needed to find a way to make a play, Dak didn't do it for $60 million. Absolutely. That's what you're getting paid to do.
And not even just didn't do it. It was 4 and out with that bad first down pass in triple coverage to nobody wearing the star on his helmet. It's just it's one of those where you look at that play and you're like, what could you possibly be seeing on that play? And that's what I thought about with the interception in the third quarter, where you look at the replay and you're like, at no point could you have thought that CeeDee Lamb was open for that. And Lenoir picks it off. Great play, but he's throwing directly into coverage. So yes, to get the ball back, more than enough time on the clock. You're down 30-24. You need a touchdown. You're heating up on offense. You played well in the fourth quarter, and then just go 4 and out. I mean, that's just kind of Dak's season so far, and that's the Cowboys' season so far, where they just can't get out of their own way. I don't see this really turning around for them either. The schedule upcoming is really tough. They're not playing well on either side of the ball. Yes, they're going to get some guys back. Deron Bland, Micah Parsons. That'll help the defense. Maybe you could salvage a couple wins here or there, but I just don't look at this as a team where it's like, all right, like the 49ers, I've just kind of assumed they're going to get it going. Maybe that's even wrong. I don't know. Cowboys, I don't assume that. I just think this is kind of who you are. You're a very mediocre football team.
Yeah, CeeDee Lamb went off. Dak got the ball to CeeDee Lamb and no one else, and they lost the game. And that's just the fact, right? George Kittle went off for the 49ers on National Tight End Day, which I still don't know why we're trying to make a thing. But Kittle goes off. Brock Purdy plays well enough. San Francisco gets a win. But you're right. Like the maddening thing about this is that I think what we're actually learning is this is who these two teams are now, right? Like San Francisco's 4-4, devastated by injuries, but they're still in this thing. They're still in the thick of this thing somehow, some way. It might not always be pretty, but they're still in the thick of this thing. The Cowboys are 3-4, and that feels about right. Like 3-4 is where you think of a team that's not bad enough to just make you want to just give up, but they're not good enough to give you any faith. And that's a pretty good way to describe the way the Cowboys are playing right now.
Again, when they got the ball back down 6 late in the game, I don't know about you, but I never really thought that they were going to get that done. This just hasn't been this team all year. They've had stretches of like 10 minutes or so of gameplay where they've looked good, but then that's about it. It's just very, very disjointed for them. What do you think of the Niners, though? I still don't know what to make of the Niners. I mean, they have another injury tonight. Jordan Mason goes down. Isaac Rendell played very well in his place, but I just wonder, like, is this team ever really going to get on a roll? They were really sloppy in the first half, didn't look very good, trailed at halftime, had basically one good quarter. That was good enough to win the game, but 3 of the 4 quarters tonight, the San Francisco 49ers weren't good.
You just can't get on a roll when you're down to your third string running back.
Yeah, that's fair.
When, Debo's got a rib injury at one point in this game, too, and it's like, coming off a pneumonia. There's nothing. When all of a sudden you're looking around saying, well, Ricky Pearsall's got to be our wide receiver 1. Like, that's just not what anybody... I know. I think the 49ers are just trying to tread water and see if they can actually get healthy. I'm not sure they'll ever get healthy. This feels like a season that's going to be lost for them. But at least they're treading water and trying. And at least I can look and see, hey, these are the reasons it isn't going well. I can say that for the 49ers as opposed to Dallas.
And the NFC West is just so bad, they're not running away. Like, nobody has run away from the 49ers. There's no stress there. The Seattle Seahawks have not made life tough on the San Francisco 49ers. Maybe the Rams can, I don't know. But it just seems like with all these injuries, with all these issues the 49ers have, here we are. They're 4-4. They're probably going to win the division. And then they're going to be a team that wherever they slot in seating-wise, if they're relatively healthy by that point, they're not going to be a team anybody wants to play.
All right, Frank, let's take a look at some of the other biggest games from the day. And this is what we're going to do. I'm going to tell you right now on this show, if you think we're about to talk about the New York Jets, we're not. Fast forward. If you're really desperate to hear the Jets, we are not going to do what everybody else does and talk about a just terrible football team here. No, instead, we'll talk about a dramatic ending. Washington gets the win over Chicago in the ending of the year. I mean, a Hail Mary.
Ending of the year, like one of the endings of NFL history. Like, I'm not. What's the greatest Hail Mary you've seen?
Oh, man, the Fail Mary stands out more than the Hail Mary.
Yeah,
I don't know.
That's actually a good
I can't
one.
think of a Hail Mary that off the top of my head, because my favorite team never gets them. This is the real moment. Like, you look at it and you're like, oh, man, no, my favorite team never gets the onside kick, never gets the Hail Mary, never gets that break. And that's exactly how they won this game.
And that's the thing. The Washington Commanders fans before this afternoon, they've been the team. We never get that play. And they did in the 80s, early 90s, 91, like maybe back then, but it's been good solid 3 decades before this has happened to that franchise. This isn't a franchise that has been, by the way, we're talking about Commanders. Unbelievable Hail Mary from Jaden Daniels to Noah Brown. Sorry, I cut you off. I'm just too excited to talk about this play.
I love this.
Jaden Daniels hits Noah Brown in the end zone, 52 yards with no time left. One of the great endings in NFL history. When I think about, look, I've tried to come to it. I'm just doing it off the top of my head, Fitz. So I think, obviously, I'm going to go college. Doug Flutie. Obviously, that's number one. That's number one on the list. Like, I think for a lot of people, some people, Cordell Stewart hit Westbrook in the end zone at the big house. That's up there. NFL wise, Aaron Rodgers to Richard Rodgers at Ford Field on that Thursday night. Awesome. Completely great. Billy White Shoes Johnson way back in the day with the Falcons. But this one is going to rank up there. And part of it is the Jaden Daniels story. This isn't just some random kind of Hail Mary that happened. This is a guy who was already having one of these rookie seasons that you could tell this is magical. We're watching something different right here with Jaden Daniels. This is a different type of rookie season. And that's before he runs around for 12 seconds. Next Gen Stats said it's the longest touch. I think they said the longest touchdown pass ever for a guy who's held the ball that long on a single play. He just runs around, creates time. And he just heaves one deep. And how we'll get the Chicago Bears part of this too, because, there's some things we got to talk about there. How the Chicago Bears let Noah Brown wide open in the end zone is just a fiasco. Like, how does this happen? But ball gets tipped up, Noah Brown catches it. And for me, I was at Buffalo Wild Wings. We talk a lot about how we go to Buffalo Wild Wings. And the whole game, I'm in the dining room area at the bar. I could see these guys. There's 3 guys, obviously friends. 2 of them are Bears fans. One of them is a Washington fan. And when that play happened, all of them lost their minds for different reasons, obviously. And the Commanders fan is just running around the bar. And it just felt like, and I got a text from one of my good friends, Jake, a longtime suffering Washington fan. And he's just like, we got that dude. And you could just, the excitement for Washington fans, Fitz, like you just kind of talked about it. They never get this play, but now they got a dude that gets that play. Like we're watching something here. This was a happening today. Like we are going to be sitting here. Hopefully we're doing this show in 20 years and something's going to happen. There's going to be a great Hail Mary. I'm going to be like, oh, Fitz, remember the time when Jaden Daniels, the Hall of Famer Jaden Daniels hit Noah Brown and we're going to laugh about it. That's the type of play this was. Awesome ending. Absolutely unbelievable. I'm so jacked up for this.
As much as there will be a great memory of the Hail Mary for some, there's going to be a really negative memory of the Hail Mary for one particular player. Tyreek Stevenson, the Bears defensive back, this is all over social media, blew up after the game as he was on the field. You can see the ball being snapped. And while the ball is being snapped, he's trash talking the crowd, nowhere near where he needed to be. And amazingly, he is the player that ended up tipping the ball. So, he's since gone to social media and said, essentially, my bad. I've learned the game's never over until the clock hits 0. But, Frank, this is a terrible look.
Terrible, terrible, terrible. And if you're a Bears fan and you're upset, you're looking for a scapegoat, well, here it is. And if you're the players in the locker room, you're like, dude, what are you doing? This was so crazy that literally the first time I saw it, I was like, is this like AI, like CGI? Like, is this real? This can't be real. And then you see like the dots, I know we all know the dots now. And it's like, yeah, Tyreek Stevens is just hanging out in the corner, like back to the field. Well, Noah Brown's running downfield for this Hail Mary. It's absolutely stunning. Just absolutely stunning. Unprofessional. If the Bears suspended him for a week, I don't think that's out of line at all. We remember last year, Jair Alexander got suspended for a week for kind of shenanigans and going out for the coin toss and almost calling it wrong or whatever. Why can't the same thing apply here? Something has to be. You have to discipline this player. I know he's a good player. He is a good young player. He was part of the Bryce Young trade of all things. But I think that's such a bad look in the locker room that if you don't at least like, okay, you're not going to start this week. We're going to bench you from starting this game. Or whatever the discipline shall be. It can't just be one of these Matt Eberflus saying, hey, we've handled this internally. Don't worry about it. No. Something needs to happen. I'm sorry. Like, Tyreek, I'm sure he does feel bad about it. But at the same time, you screwed this up so bad. There's got to be some ramifications.
Yeah, but it's the whole coachism of the standard is the standard. Like, what's going on there that Tyreek felt like that was even an okay behavior, right? It feels so strange to me, Frank, that, the question number 1 is how they handle it. But question number 2 is, what do you need to change inside your locker room so that people understand they shouldn't even be doing it in the first place?
And you bring up this example a lot. Would that happen to a Bill Belichick team? You think like Devin McCourty would be out? No, like that would never happen in a million years. It's just, you're right. Like it's kind of a symptom. Like you're like, well, yeah. Does that mean that Tyreek Stevenson screwing around and trash talking fans while Noah Brown's running downfield? Is that directly Matt Eberflus's fault? No, but there's something going on there where he didn't think it was that bad of an idea. So again, it's probably unfair to pin it all on him. Like this one looked really bad. That video was awful, but at the same time, it does look awful and something needs to come of it.
None of that happens, though, without, and let's not get this twisted. You got a Jaden Daniels we weren't even sure was going to play. So with a bum rib, with rib pain that's obvious throughout the course of that game, too, took some hits. He just heaved the ball up in the air and was able to get it down there. Like that, to me, in and of itself was shocking. But I also, we got to be clear here. The better team won this football game. The team that deserved to win this game won this football game because the Washington Commanders, in every way, shape, and form, played a cleaner, better game than Chicago. I was stunned by how inept, Frank, over and over again. I was watching a Chicago team that's talented, Chicago team that got their own quarterback that they're excited about, a Chicago team that up and down the board was supposed to be, especially on the defensive side, a little bit better than Washington. Like this was supposed to be a Chicago team that was ready for this moment, and it felt like they were tripping over their own feet with stupid mistakes the whole game.
Absolutely. And Caleb didn't play well. Like, yes, he rallied in the fourth quarter, but at one point early, in about 2 minutes into the fourth quarter, his line was 4 of 16 for 36 yards. Like, he was awful in this game, like really, really bad. He was getting pressured a lot, but he also was feeling pressure when it wasn't there either. You could just tell he was just frenetic in the pocket. There was no calmness to him whatsoever. All of this, the kind of strides he made the past few weeks kind of just went out the window. And this was what we were talking about week 2, week 3, when he was just trying to do everything and he wasn't very poised, wasn't very calm. We kind of thought we'd taken that step with Caleb Williams, and then he has a game like this. Now, credit to him, made some plays at the end in the fourth quarter, and he had them in position to win. I mean, they score go-ahead touchdown with 23 seconds left, and it looks like the story was going to be, wow, Caleb wasn't great, but came through when he had to. So credit to him for that. But really a bad game for him. And, man, Matt Eberflus, we got to talk about this. So in the fourth quarter, a few minutes left, they're at the goal line.
He's worked up on this.
They're at the goal line, and I didn't even know what happened on the play, like, because it was just so weird. They put an offensive lineman, Doug Kramer Jr., at fullback, and they hand up the ball. What are you doing? What are you doing? Jason Reed, another great writer out there, hit me up on Twitter. We're having a banter about this, and he said it better than I could, so I'm going to steal it from him. Eberflus doesn't call the plays. He's not the offensive coordinator. But when that call comes through the headset of, yeah, we're going to give the ball to a 300-pound offensive lineman, you say, nope, that ain't happening. Find another play, because Roschon Johnson has become one of the better goal line backs in the NFL. DeAndre Swift is a pretty good back himself. We're going to give the ball to Doug Kramer Jr., like right now, with the game on the line in the fourth quarter. That ain't happening. So I put this on Eberflus. If this season goes south for him, and he gets fired at the end of the year. And I've done this with Matt Eberflus before, so maybe I shouldn't already be firing him or anything. I did this last year, early in the year. But if this season goes south and he gets fired at the end of the year, the name Doug Kramer Jr. is going to be in every single story, because they were on the verge of 5-2 record in this game. All you got to do is win. If they score that touchdown, the entire game turns out differently. Hail Mary probably never happens. Absolute fiasco to call that play right there. An absolute debacle to let Noah Brown wide open in the end zone. Not a great offensive game plan to help your rookie quarterback out. Just this was coaching malpractice by the Chicago Bears today. That's the reason they're not 5-2 right now. But yeah, a lot of this game, it was an ugly, ugly game, but with just so many things to talk about in this unbelievable ending.
But stick there for a second, because one of my favorite things to talk about in college sports is the phrase lack of institutional control. And to me, I put that a lot of times, even to the NFL side. And when I think institutional control, I think, what are the ramifications? And, no matter what you do for a living, you know that there have been times that you've had an idea that might be kind of crazy, and you think for a second before you take it to your boss. You're like, in the right mood. Is this the day to propose this wild idea? If you got a Belichick on the sideline, if you've got even an Andy Reid on the sideline, if you've got somebody on the sideline that understands the situation, and Andy Reid's a good example of this. Late in the game today, the Chiefs game we'll talk about later, he could have kept the offense on the field, took the points. Why? Because Andy Reid does understand situational football, right? Like, so the situational football aspect of this just makes me think, what in the hell made the decision to make this play call okay for everybody involved in it? How did you not sit there and think, this isn't going to be the time? Like, and if
this is the time, right? This is the time. Like,
even if Eberflus didn't know that it was going to be called, he's created an atmosphere where it can't be called. It just made no sense to me. And I don't understand why we've made football cute so often. Like, there are just times that, man, you can't get cute. I would rather see things not successful, but at least I can follow the math. I can follow the homework. How did you get there? I don't understand how they got there with that one at all. And frankly, it helped cost them the game. No one play cost them the game. Several plays together cost them the game. If we're going to credit the Hail Mary for the reason they lost the game, I think you got to look at that turnover also as one of the reasons they lost that game. And Frank, you're right. 5-2 feels way different than 4-3. Like, in the division they're in, man, this changes the landscape of the entire playoff because of a dumb play call.
Yeah, and on the other side of this, Commanders, I believe they're 6-2 right now. I think they played all 8. So, I mean, how much better do you feel than 5-3 with Philly, who we're going to talk about in a bit? Philly breathing down your neck. Like, this is just such when a game, it's just so crazy when a game just changes like this, where it's like, I mean, the Bears had this game, like, it's literally over. It's your win expectancy at that point is 99 point whatever, right? Like, I mean, for them to lose that game, just they're going to have a lot of regrets at the end of the year. And again, if this season turns sour, we're all going to point back to that game, and we're all going to point back to the mistakes they made. And one of the big mistakes was we're going to get cute and hand off to an offensive lineman at the goal line. Like, in the fourth quarter. Like, no, let's not. Let's just
especially
not. Like you said, like
you mentioned the standings, Frank. Washington is 6-2. Yes, you are right. Chicago's 4-3, which is good. Which is where we thought we'd be. But let's also remember the Lions are 6-1. So by way of this loss, the Bears are now 2 games back in their own division. Because of that play call, because of the way this whole game ends, because of that Hail Mary, they are 2 games back in their division.
And I think they come out, Fitz, I think they come out of this game with a lot more questions about Caleb Williams than you would think. Like, yes, he was good in the fourth quarter, and maybe that righted the ship a little bit. But, I mean, Anthony Richardson went 2 of 15 and a half. We'll talk about him later, too. But Caleb Williams wasn't any better. He 4 of 16. Like, that's horrible. Like, all of a sudden you were like, oh, Caleb Williams has arrived. He's in a rookie of the year race, and he's this and he's that. And now you kind of take a step back and you say, wow, maybe we just were beating up on bad teams, and Caleb really isn't kind of as far along as we thought. I think a loss like this kind of makes you question everything. It's a devastating loss for the Bears. As great as it is for the Commanders and that dude at Buffalo Wild Wings in Highlands Ranch, Colorado, running around the bar, celebrating like he hasn't in like 30 years as a Washington fan. That's how tough it is on the Bears, because it's a kind of game that keeps you out of the playoff race. Yeah, it's just the swing here is just unbelievable.
At this point, Stone, I'll buy the plane ticket for you. Let's all go to Colorado and we'll sit in a Buffalo Wild Wings together. All right, so you talk about great wins, momentum, plus it factor. What a difference one guy makes, right? Like there is just, I'm going to make a change for once in my life. Looking at the man in the mirror. The man in the mirror for this one was Jameis Winston, right? Like Jameis Winston came in today and the improbable happened. We watched an entire organization, and I mean everybody, from the opening kickoff against the heavily favored Ravens in the minds of most. Cleveland came out with a fire. Cleveland came out with an energy. Cleveland came out like they knew they stood a chance. And we've talked about Deshaun enough to just pass out at this point. Let's make this for a second about Jameis Winston. 27 of 41, 334 yards, 3 touchdowns, no picks. Got away with a couple of them, but no picks in this game. Played really clean football and just did what I think you and I have said Jameis would do for a long time. This wasn't just about quarterback play. This is also about read the room, read the sideline, feel the vibe, feel the energy. Jameis walking up and down on the sideline. Just, it hit different, Frank. And I looked at this and I thought, damn, like the season is not over. There is still enough football left for this version of the Browns to make a run and get to the playoffs. There's still enough football left for Jameis Winston to do the impossible. And I honestly think that there are so many people rooting for that right now. It is wild to see how everybody says that's what we expected the Browns to be.
Yeah, I got to push back a little bit. I'll try to keep this all because it's the same thought, but I can't just gloss over Deshaun Watson here, because whoever made this decision to keep Deshaun Watson in the starting role, whether that was ownership, whether that was Stefanski being a Lone Ranger, like Mike Tomlin likes to say, whoever it was, you look back now and you say that was malpractice. You screwed up this season. You punted this season. Why? For the feelings of Deshaun Watson? Like, what were we doing? Because you're chasing a contract that's already sunk costs? Like, this team is 2-6. They were 1-6 coming into this game. You look back at this game. Yes, it was a great win. It was a fun win. And you say there's enough football for them to get back in this. Yeah, they go 9-1 the rest of the way, or 8-1, however many games they got left. You look back at this and did this win, and you say that's what we could have been. That's what we could have been if our organization was competent enough to go with the right quarterback. Jameis Winston is not great. He looked like freaking 1984 Dan Marino compared to what they were trotting out there. They had not reached 20 points in a game this season. Jameis comes in, throws for 344 yards against a really, really good Ravens team. Jameis is not like some superstar. He is what he is. He's going to make plays. He's going to make bad plays. This game is over if Kyle Hamilton it doesn't drop an interception and falls in his lap. Next play, Winston hits Cedric Tillman for a touchdown. This to me is, yes, it's great they got this win, but it's also, let's take a step back, 10,000-foot view of the Cleveland Browns and say, how could you look your players in the eye and after this? Because you punted your season. You gave them no chance to compete this season. You were 1-6 with an obviously inferior quarterback. I was writing about it earlier this year. We were talking about it on the show. Other people, everybody was talking about how in the world could you not bench Deshaun Watson? And today we got proof that if you would have benched Deshaun Watson earlier in the season, you could have made something out of yourself. You maybe could have made the playoffs. I think it's too late for them. You got 6 losses. Where are you going to go? What are you going to do? You started 1-6. You're probably done. Today was, yes, a great win, but also an indictment of whatever the decision-making process was to have the NFL's worst quarterback starting over anybody viable, and Jameis Winston was obviously viable. And even last week, when DTR came in the game instead of Jameis Winston, and I was like, what are we doing here? Why? This is... Kevin Stefanski is a two-time coach of the year, but something's fishy, something's foul here. They screwed up their season, and today was just more proof of how this quarterback change should have happened weeks and weeks and weeks ago, if not back in the offseason.
Okay, so I'm going to push back on your pushback. I don't know if that's allowed in the way that we push things, but I'm going to push back on your pushback. And here's what I'm going to say. Right now, if you're the Browns, a couple of things. You have Jameis in the room, and you have the opportunity the rest of the season to see if maybe Jameis can actually be the other person, because you know Deshaun isn't going to be him for the rest of this thing, so maybe there is something. But then the other side of it is, we love to play the schedule game on this show. They got the Chargers, the Saints, the Steelers, the Broncos, the Steelers coming up. That run, every one of those games is winnable for them the way they played today. Mm-hmm. Every single one of them. Oh, yeah. Then they have
if you can beat the Ravens, you can beat anybody. Yeah, I get that.
Right. Then they have the Chiefs, Bengals, Dolphins, Ravens to finish. The last month of the season is tough. Have they dug themselves in a hole? Yeah. Could I see them getting to the end of the year where all of a sudden they're trying to fight their way to 9-8? The way they played today?
I just don't think 9-8 is going to be good enough in the. I think you got to go 8-1 the rest of the year, and that's
okay. And
can this team do that? A heavy lift. That's a heavy lift. To get the 10 wins. I mean, maybe 9-8 is good enough. You win some tiebreakers, whatever. But I just think it's a little too late. And again, I look back and I think this was so obvious to every. You didn't need an expert football mind to say, why are you starting this quarterback who obviously can't play anymore? He's just done. He's cooked. He's finished. Like, what do you see in this guy? We were saying this for weeks. Again, you punted your season because of the sunk cost of a contract, because of some quarterback's feelings who doesn't probably deserve that benefit of the doubt. Let's be honest. Like, I don't know. I just find it. I think today was a great win for the Browns, and yet also an indictment of how they screwed up the first 7 weeks of the season and basically gave their team no chance going forward to make the playoffs.
I think there are a couple of fun redemption stories here, though. Jameis, we just talked about. I think this could be the beginning of something fun. Also, I got to give Kevin Stefanski a ton of credit for giving up play calling duties. That's a huge moment.
Sure.
And also Ken Dorsey, who took over play calling duties. Let's not forget, he's the one that got fired in Buffalo, right? So there was a concept that Ken Dorsey was so limited that was holding back everything the Bills wanted to accomplish on the offensive side of the ball. I think there's a redemption arc here to Jameis with Ken Dorsey and Kevin Stefanski saying, hey, I'll step back from all of this. Like, there is a humility involved in all three of these men in this process that really becomes one of the nicer stories we can have through the rest of the year. And there is still a common thread. You and I agreed coming into this season that this Browns team was talented enough to be Super Bowl caliber if they could just get mediocre play from Deshaun Watson. Now, you and I disagreed on whether or not mediocrity was even in the cards on that.
Yeah,
turns out we were both wrong. I thought he was washed. I didn't think he would be horrific, right? So he was so horrific at this job that at this point, Jameis steps in, and I can't help but think that Kevin Stefanski right now isn't putting his feet up in his office, having a drink and saying, man, it feels good to actually see the team competently quarterbacked. Ken Dorsey's got to sit back and say, God, this is what offense is supposed to look like. I got to give a lot of credit to all of the guys involved in that.
And by the way, look how good the Browns have been in basically games Deshaun Watson has not started the past couple of years, whether it be Joe Flacco or Jameis Winston today. Like, that's a good football team. Really good football team. If you just would have made the right choice at quarterback, but whatever. Anything to say about the Ravens? I kind of come out of this game saying, yeah, it's not great for your defense. You might have got some things exposed there or whatever, but I kind of am just like, I expected the Browns to be fired up because usually teams, their first game with a new quarterback, come out and they usually play well. They rally around that quarterback, and especially in this case, to be energized. All those guys know Deshaun's cooked. They might not have liked the fans cheering when he got hurt or anything, but they all know in the back of their minds, this guy ain't it. And to be energized by like, wow, we have an actual professional quarterback now. I figured the Browns would play well, and that it was just a tough spot for the Ravens to be in, and I don't really downgrade them that much for this.
There is a element here. Now that I praised the Browns, there's an element here that I think, to be honest, Ravens got really unlucky in this game. Like Zay Flowers had a drop on a third down conversion where he lost the ball in the sun. The long touchdown pass by Jameis was absolutely incredible. Lamar running around before his heave at the end of the game where, man, wide receiver doesn't slip. Maybe we have a different ending. Like, there are a lot of things that didn't break the Ravens' way. I'm not going to panic about this. I don't think this was suddenly an indictment. I do think it's a reminder that when the Ravens do not commit to and are not capable of running the football the way they want to, it becomes much easier to shut this team down. Now, I don't think that there's some common thread that goes the rest of the season that way. So I'm with you on that completely. Okay, we got to talk. I know we've committed the ultimate sin on this show. We haven't talked about the Jets yet, and apparently that's actually a financial obligation. It's contractual. You have to do that. We'll talk about that BS team that played an absolute garbage football game. And we'll also talk about my garbage football game. In fact, we'll talk about every other game. We'll do it when we come back. Hey, Frank.
Yes,
what if?
Fitz.
Hear me out. Do you remember you can't do that on television?
Yeah, I was going to say that. You just did that. No, that was a great show. Yeah,
I make that reference, and nobody ever remembers
I got
it.
you. Green slime going to come down on me. That's where I came from. Yeah.
Alanis Morissette. Okay. Here's the thing. What if, hear me out, what if we actually need to stop talking about the Cincinnati Bengals using anything that we expected, any of the past of the last few years, any of the metrics we thought they were going to be held to? What if we just talk about the Bengals for who they are now, which is a football team that can get got defensively, that doesn't have a lot of help there, and an offense that is, I think, maddeningly inconsistent with different guys dropping the ball consistently. This is a team with a good quarterback, and everything else is sort of questionable right now, the way they're playing week in and week out. What if instead the Eagles beat the Bengals 37-17? I don't know. I kind of looked at this and said, I'm not going to make some sweeping statement about the Eagles because I'm not sure the Bengals are any better than the other trash teams the Eagles have beaten over the last few weeks.
You might be right. Yeah, I mean, what are they living on right now? They're living on what they've done in the past. 3 years ago when they went to the Super Bowl, I tried telling everybody, I get a lot of stuff wrong, but the one thing I did get right, go back and read my Bengals preview. I said, this wasn't just Joe Burrow getting hurt last year. There's a lot of things under the hood that were not right about this Bengals team last year, including their defense, which was awful. Their defense, once again, is awful, and it collapsed in the second half here. I believe they got outscored 27-7 in the second half. I might be wrong about that, but they just got the doors blown off them in the second half. And the whole time I'm just sitting there watching, Jalen Hurts make play after play and Saquon run it and Joe Burrow do nothing on offense basically after a good first half. And I'm just saying, yeah, this team ain't it. They're not good. They're just a bad football team right now. Maybe they rally, but again, kind of like we talked about the Browns, they're not in that big of a hole, but you start doing the math of how many games you got to win to get to 10. And it's like, this team ain't doing that. I don't see it happening for them. It's at some point we just got to give up this idea that the Bengals just start slow and now they're going to be great. No, they're just not a good football team. It starts with that defense. I don't know really what's happened to them. It's a little bit inexplicable how they've really gone downhill on defense, but it's happened. But
it's not inexplicable. There's one thing I'd say, and Aaron Schatz and all the Football Outsiders analytics people have been screaming this for the last couple of years. The analytics show that this defense was a little bit of a house of cards. And that's what they now the house has collapsed. And I guess what bothers me, Frank, is I was driving back, from watching all the games at Buffalo Wild Wings, because that's our tradition around here. Where's
our sponsorship?
At least send us a gift card. Damn. But as I was driving back from Buffalo Wild Wings, and what blew my mind is I was listening to a radio person that was saying, hey, this is now we have to take the Eagles seriously. We didn't have to take them seriously when they beat the Browns and the Giants because those are bad football teams. And I literally yelled into my radio, how do we know that the Bengals are any better than those bad teams? Now, Jalen Hurts gets 3 rushing touchdowns and 16-20 for 236 and a touchdown. Jalen Hurts was very good. And the Eagles, everybody this week is going to say the Eagles found their identity again. They found the offense that is going to work for them. I would say, hey, the Eagles had this great advantage of taking on the Bengals defense. And when you take on the Bengals defense, boy, it's easy to look like you know what you're doing offensively. The Bengals defense is a joke at this point. So just because they got the Bengals stripes and the Cincinnati name, and we think that Joe Burrow is going to lead his team down this path every single year, doesn't mean that this year's Bengals teams are worth that level of hype. They just aren't.
Yeah, tough to disagree with that. It really is. I will say, the Eagles did pass the eye test. They did look good. A.J. Brown just makes such a big difference for this team. I mean, he missed some time earlier in the year, and they just were kind of a shell of themselves. But this, I will say, even if it's against a bad Bengals team, they handled business in the second half the way you should beat a bad team. They looked good. They looked like the Eagles. This is what we want to see, the efficiency out of Jalen Hurts, the rushing touchdowns out of Jalen Hurts, Barkley doing his thing, A.J. Brown being able to make a play whenever they need it. So a little more optimistic about the Eagles than you coming out of this game because I think they handle business the way you want to see them handle business. But I get what you mean.
I'm not optimistic. I just don't think that this win changed a lot of my mindset.
Your perception. Mm-hmm.
Because, like, I don't think we can learn that much from. Just like we don't learn that much from the Lions. Absolutely. I mean, just look. It was. You can't. It's a true story, Frank. This morning, I'm getting ready to do Fantasy Football Live, and I'm looking at my rosters. I got injuries everywhere. And I was like, you know what? You know that I've been loud about the fact that the Titans are an abject disaster. And so I looked at it, and on my bench, in a couple of my leagues, I had Khalif Raymond. And I was like, you know what? Might as well just throw in Khalif Raymond and see what happens. Boy,
oh, my goodness, really?
I'm having a fantasy football day. The Lions won 52-14.
For the year right there. Wow.
Yeah, I know. My God. I should have put cash on it. The funny thing is, I love this nugget, and I'll give Stone, producer extraordinaire, credit for finding it. The last team to score 50 points with less than 100 passing yards was the 1955 Chicago Bears. Why am I telling you that? Because if you did not watch this game, if all you saw was the final score and you thought, oh, the Lions beat up on the Titans, of course they did. The Titans stink. This makes total sense. What you missed here is that it was the kick return game. It was everything you could. It was the running game. Jared Goff was 12 of 15 for 85 yards and 3 touchdowns, but 12 of 15 for 85 yards. Unbelievable info here. And Stone has just let me know he stole this from you, Frank. So I'm giving Frank all the credit.
And I stole it from Josh Dubow of Associated Press. So we all steal from each other. I was shocked. I didn't realize. Like, I'm watching that game. I'm watching the Lions just seemingly score. And then I went to just look at the stats because I was curious. And I saw Goff at the halftime. They had 35 points and Goff had 28 passing yards. And I'm like, this is a misprint? Like, what? 28? Is that it? Really? And then you think, like, I guess I haven't seen him complete that many passes downfield or anything. And I had somebody ask because maybe people are interested in Jared Goff from week to week now who know me. I don't know that this hurt Jared Goff's MVP candidacy because I think it is a thing now, especially Lamar losing today, because he was just so, like, he did what he had to do. Here's 3 touchdowns. I have a 129.9 rating. What else do you want me to do? We won 52-14. Like, it was just such a weird game where they just can score from anywhere on the field in any kind of way. And Ben Johnson just seems, I wonder if he has a separate playbook for just trick plays. Like, what are we going to dial up today? We're going to just get David Montgomery to throw to Sam Laporta in the end zone today. Why not? Like, it just seems like he has endless trick plays going on. They can score in so many different ways from anywhere on the field, and that is rare for an offense. This is the best offense in football. No disrespect to the Ravens, who also play offensive football really well. This is the most fun team to watch in the NFL. This is a Super Bowl contender, and this is a very good football team. And I'll be honest, like I do power rankings tomorrow, and the thought was crossing my head, especially a game. We'll talk about the Chiefs in a second. Is this the best team in the NFL? Should this team be number one, even though they're not the undefeated team? And I don't know. I don't know which way I'm leaning now. They have a good case that this is the best team in football.
They have a great case. They are by far built to most complimentary. Like, let's get it clear here. The Detroit Lions today are the best team in the NFL. I don't care about the loss. Like,
power rankings loss too. They had twice as many yards as the Buccaneers. It was a weird loss.
Power rankings are not as simple as you say all the time as just taking everybody and what they're ranking us. Like, when you look at power rankings, I want complimentary football. I want a team that when things aren't going well, they can change what they're doing to beat you, which the Lions have proven over and over they can. I need a team that's going to be able to run the football in January. We know they can do that. I need the team that can win in a shootout if their defense doesn't show up. I need a team that can get after the quarterback. And even without Aiden Hutchinson, they can do that. I need a team that can get defensive stops when they need it. And guess what? The Lions can do that. Like, in the way that modern football is won, I don't see how I would take anybody on a neutral field in any one game above the Detroit Lions right now.
Right. If you're still telling anybody defense wins championships, it's like, go back to like 1972, dude. That really ain't the deal anymore. Offense wins championships in just about every sport. And this Lions offense is just like, you get to a point of like, how do you stop them? Like Jahmyr Gibbs, that long touchdown run he had today, the term shot out of a cannon, that applied to that play. He just blew by everybody. David Montgomery's going to end up with like 15 touchdowns again. And Laporta hasn't even been a big part of their offense, and he might be the most talented tight end in the NFL, like at least in the running. So yeah, there's just so many things this Lions offense does well. They got the great play caller for it. Goff is obviously so comfortable in the offense. I mean, he's putting up a 130 rating every week. Like this is kind of unprecedented. So yeah, this Lions team has the offense to win a Super Bowl. There's no question about it. And and everybody should be rooting for them. And look, I get it. If you're a Ravens fan or a 49ers fan or whatever, any team that still has like hopes of making a Super Bowl, yeah, you might not be rooting for the Lions to win a Super Bowl. But anybody neutral right now should be rooting for the Lions to win the Super Bowl because it would be just phenomenal.
I will say quickly, somebody screamed in the bar, why would you run a trick play when you're already winning that much for the Montgomery to Laporta play? And all I kept thinking is because now you've put something else on film that people have to prepare for.
I think it was Ben Johnson when they ran, I think it was this play, when they ran the hook and ladder to Penei Sewell, which was like the most disrespectful play call I've ever seen in my life, and I loved it. I think somebody asked Ben Johnson about it. I hope I'm not just making this up in my mind, a fever dream or something. Somebody asked Ben Johnson, like, why would you do that? Like, you're already up big. Wouldn't you want to save that? And he's like, it's fine. I got a million of these plays. We'll just dig deeper into the bucket and I'll get another one for us. Like, that's just the confidence they have right now. Almost cockiness of like, yeah, we're fine. We'll run a trick play, Montgomery to Laporta, because we'll have another one next week for you. We're not worried about that.
Speaking of confidence, the Cardinals have some. They beat Miami by 28-27. Marvin Harrison, 111 yards and a touchdown. Miami gets Tua back. Miami had some of their explosiveness back. They had some of their weapons back. I kept thinking that this was going to be a big breakout game for him. But, Frank, I got to give a lot of credit to Kyler Murray and the Cardinals, who looked ready to go blow to blow, and they just were. Like, neither of these defenses, you talk about defenses wins champions. This is what I would say. A defense that can get key stops at the right time wins you championships. Neither of these teams could really get those key stops when they needed them. This was a big win, though, for Arizona. They're now in first place in the NFC West. I got to give Kyler Murray and the Cardinals credit. I thought Miami would get this win. They did not.
I'll be honest with you, like really, really honest. Like, it slipped my mind that they were 500 after this game. It was like, wow, they're 500. This is a team that's won a lot of weird games. The game at San Francisco and even the Chargers game was right down to the wire. But the wins are wins, and you're collecting them. And today, for them to stay in the fight and get this win at the end, I thought Kyler played his second best game of the year. He's also against the Rams early in the year. Second best game of the year. It was really Marvin Harrison's best game of the year, I thought. He had that one crazy quarter against the Rams, and then he hasn't been that good since then. And as much as I hyped him up in the offseason, loved him as everybody is, all-time prospect, but he hasn't been that good. He was good today. He made plays all over the field. It just seems like they're figuring things out offensively. They're getting better, and they're 4-4. They're, like you said, first place in the NFC West. That is a thing now. So good on the Cardinals. But for me, this game was more about the Dolphins. Get your quarterback back. You look pretty good early on. You're moving the ball. Tyreek's involved again. Everything looks good. Tua does play well, and you still lose. And now it's like, okay, well, again, the holes you dig early in the season are tough to get out of, and you can't lose this kind of game if you're Miami, especially because you gave away some games when you were absolutely positively unwatchable on offense. You get Tua back. He looks good. He plays well. The offense plays well, and you still lose. That's kind of a heartbreaking, soul-crushing game for the Dolphins right here.
Yeah, and the magic seems to be lost a little bit for Miami, too. That's going to be interesting to see. You mentioned, teams that need to get wins. The Jets. Jets, Jets.
Let's do
As
it.
I say all the time, Jets suck. All right? I don't know. And here's the thing. I heard somebody say today that the Jets might be having the most disappointing season in sports history. Let me say this clearly. Their season is not disappointing. What to me is disappointing is how many people put expectations on them throughout the course of the offseason that were not realistic. This franchise has never made a Super Bowl. And suddenly it's like, well, Aaron Rodgers is here. We're going to win a Super Bowl. Like, it doesn't work that way. There's never been any of that process, that journey to get through the playoff runs we usually see. There's just nothing. It was, hey, this team has a really good defense. They get Aaron Rodgers, they're going to win a Super Bowl. It doesn't work that way. And now, just like I said when they traded for Devontae Adams, that offense is unwatchable and out of sync. Guess what they still look like? Unwatchable and out of sync. Guess what? Aaron Rodgers has been inaccurate at times. Like, the ball placement has not been anywhere close to where it needs to be. They still have offensive line issues. They lose to New England. And not only do they lose to New England, they lose to the Patriots in a game that Drake May was knocked out with a concussion, and Jacoby Brissett still took it to him. Shame on the Jets for playing like trash, but shame on everybody that decided that suddenly they were going to be a Super Bowl team. Because guess what? It's not now that's wrong. It's the whole summer that was wrong. The Jets are exactly who I thought the Jets were going to be the entire time.
Yeah, you were right. I was wrong. I thought Aaron Rodgers would fix everything. I mean, feels good. It's obviously they're a bad football team. Bad, straight up bad. And as many people have pointed out, Zach Wilson has a better winning percentage as Jets starting quarterback than Aaron Rodgers.
That's
like.
Say it with your chest, Frank. That's wild.
What else could you absolutely say about this Jets team? This seemed like the Like Drago landing the final right hand against Creed. Like any hope you had that, hey, maybe the Jets can turn this around. I know a very popular network spent way too long when I was at the gym today. I was looking up. I'm like, we're really talking about, can the Jets make the playoffs? What? I should go Jim Mora style. Like, we're just trying to win a game here. Like, we're talking about the playoffs with the Jets. If you had that hope in the back of your mind, it's done now. They're just a bad football team. They're last place in the AFC East, and there's a reason. They're not good, and it's not going to get much better. Like, it's maybe they win a few more games, but again, bad football team. This whole project didn't work, and I'm not saying like Aaron Rodgers is going to quit on his team or anything, but you got to think that he's sitting there saying, why am I, can I just be done now? Can I just retire today? Because he knows that this is just going to be a slog the rest of the season. None of this is going to be fun. The Jets team looks like it wants the offseason to be here already. I mean, for them to lose this game is just heinous. Like, again, Drake May, like the one hope the Patriots have had is Drake May making plays. He gets knocked out of the game, and I'm like, oh my God, this is going to get ugly. And I just kept looking at that game. Obviously, 8 games going on in the morning. I just kept looking at that game like, are the Jets going to pull away at some point? Like, why haven't they? They're still up 2 points. They're still up 2. And they just could not do it. They don't have it in them. They don't have the heart. This team is soft. They have no heart. They have no desire. They just, again, they look like they're ready for the season to be done. They just look like, let's get out of here. And then in the offseason, it's got to be a clean house situation, right? Like, there's nobody to come back from this debacle. Like, this was a dark, dark day for the Jets and all their fans because all the hope of all of this Aaron Rodgers hype, it was kind of dashed before today, but now it's just dead. Like, you just lost to the Patriots and Jacoby Brissett. Yeah, that is just a horrendous way for this whole this whole like project, this whole gamble that they took. It's just what a weird way for it to end.
Yeah, 1,000%. It's a dark day for all football fans because as much as I say all the time, I have a lot of love for ESPN. They changed my life. But tomorrow, the A block, as they like to call it, the first block of Get Up and First Take and every stinking Pat McAfee, the first block of every one of these shows is going to have some sort of Aaron Rodgers Jets conversation. And I'm just going to sit here and wonder, when's the last time we talked about a team with this record? And I will make the backhanded comment, as I think has been earned at this point, that Devontae Adams demanded a trade from a 2-6 team to go to a 2-6 team. But boy, he's playing with his friends now. All right. Yeah, I know. Woo! Boy, that's just all right. The Falcons beat the Buccaneers 31-26. Another good game from Kirk Cousins, 276, 4 touchdowns. I feel like this game got lost today, and this was a game that mattered a lot. I was impressed with Tampa Bay's ability to get some offense going, knowing the weapons that they're missing. But I looked at this and thought, man, this Falcons team, just every time I think they're going to be left for dead by the side of the street, they fight back. They have more fight in them than I give them credit for. It's a big win for Atlanta.
A huge win for Atlanta. Now, they take over first place of the division, and they have the tiebreaker. They've swept the Buccaneers now, so they have the head-to-head tiebreaker, which is massive. This was big game. I just kind of felt for the Buccaneers. Like, this is, you lose Godwin, you lose Evans, and your entire team changes. And yeah, they fought till the end, and they were in it, but that a little bit misleading. I thought that they were really, really behind in this game. Like, they just couldn't get anything out of their receivers all game. Kate Otten was carrying the load, and he played really, really well. But until the end, until the fourth quarter, they had nothing from their receivers. And this is just how life is going to be for them for the next few weeks. Even when, what's Evans going to come back to when he does come back from his hamstring injury? I just felt for the Buccaneers because I think they're a good football team that just had their season blown up with a couple of injuries. And now they're going to have to be so much better than the Falcons the rest of the way that it's hard for me to get there because the Falcons have still a pretty easy schedule coming up. I thought Kirk Cousins continued to make strides. Kyle Pitts had a big game. They continue to get the thing Arthur Smith couldn't do. They're getting stuff. Drake London's been a target monster all year. Bijan Robinson's looking more like a top 10 pick of the draft. This Atlanta team, again, I keep riding a roller coaster with Atlanta, thinking they're Fugazi or are they for real? This was their first, I think, legitimate win where I say, okay, that's a good quality win on the road against a Buccaneers team. Yeah, maybe shorthanded, but they're a good team. I think they could build off of this. I've said that before. We'll see if it comes to fruition, but this did feel like a huge, huge game for Atlanta. And probably the game we're going to look back on and say, that's the game that won on the NFC South.
5-3 right now. And if you're Atlanta 5-3 midway through the season, you feel pretty good. The craziest game to me that I didn't expect to be good, but the ending was like a good ending doesn't make a good football game. But the Packers get the 30-27 win over the Jags. And this was crazy because couple of things. Jordan Love left with a groin injury where he wasn't even hit during a play. It was just sort of shoved, and all of a sudden it looked uncomfortable.
Awkward,
Malik Willis comes in. The Jags get a late touchdown. And it looks like from that late touchdown that, they're going to have an opportunity to tie or win this game. And then all of a sudden, what do you see? You see Green Bay get a massive, I think it was a 51-yard completion from Malik Willis. Absolutely stunning
51.
moment. The Jags break down, and then all of a sudden, Green Bay turns around and gets the winning field goal at the end of the game. So a lot of credit to Matt LaFleur, who we continue to say on this show, might deserve some real Coach of the Year candidacy conversation. At this point, as much as Jordan Love has been very good, and you're right about that, I'm impressed with LaFleur's ability to win no matter who's at the quarterback position.
And today was different. Earlier games impressive as well. Don't get me wrong, but you have a week to prepare. You have a week to put in a game plan specific to Malik Willis's, his deficiencies and his strengths. This game, you're not expecting Malik Willis to play, but Jordan Love goes down. And now all of a sudden you got to change things on the fly. The play they ran to Jaden Reed after the Jaguars came back. They're fighting for their lives. They come back, tie the game with about a minute-ish to go. And they ran this. It was basically a throwback screen to Jaden Reed, but with action, and they had Reed. It was great. Look at that play. It's football porn, really. It was a phenomenal play for that moment that you wonder, like, how many times did Malik Willis even get to rep this during the week? Did he at all? Like, it was like, hey, you remember that play that Jordan was running in practice on Wednesday? Go run that, kid. And he did. And Malik Willis is one of those guys. There's a few instances in NFL history of a backup quarterback coming in, playing really, really well for a stretch while he keeps the seat warm for the starter. And you look back, and I always think of the 2015 Broncos, because for as much grief as Brock Osweiler gets, for as much of the butt of the joke he is, the 2015 Broncos do not win a Super Bowl without what Brock Osweiler did in the middle of the season when Peyton Manning was hurt. He played well. He got them key wins that mattered when it came to home field advantage in the playoffs and all that. And the same thing's happening with Willis. He's played 3 games basically, and they've won all 3. And you're going to look back at the end of the year, like we talk about, like, oh, the Bears are going to regret losing today, or this or that. You're going to look back at those 3 games and say, what we knew, what we thought about Malik Willis, you probably should go 0-3 in those games. You go 3-0. That's the difference between making the playoffs, winning a division. Maybe they're not out of that conversation. Malik Willis has been an awesome story this year. But to your point, I think the bigger picture story here is Matt LaFleur, who, honestly, if we're voting on Coach of the Year right now, there's a lot of candidates, but I don't know that there's a better candidate than Matt LaFleur.
I mean, the Green Bay Packers are 6-2, and they haven't had their starting quarterback for how much of the season? Like that to me
3
is
games. 3 games.
It's pretty stunning.
The difference is incredible. Mm-hmm.
Speaking of stunning, we had a stunning ass kicking today. Sorry, Stone, producer extraordinaire. He's a Seahawks fan. We got to get into what the Bills did to Seattle. We'll do it when we come back. All right, Frank. The Bills-Seahawks game I thought was going to be the game of the afternoon. It was a rainy, gross day, a shocking moment. I'm going to learn how to use my words. Bills Mafia was in that stadium. Like it was truly stunning to me. And the Bills shellacked the Seahawks 31-10. This was a big statement win on the road, all the way across country. Man, I just keep looking at this Bills team thinking, when they are good, they are unbeatably good. It is really fun to watch.
This was kind of the definitive game of the Bills being a really, really good all-around team. Maybe it was the Dolphins game earlier in the year on that Thursday night when Tua was still healthy and they just destroyed them. But this game, I don't think Seattle's a bad football team. I don't know if they're great either, but they're not a bad football team. Buffalo went in there, ran the ball really, really well. James Cook had over 100 yards. Josh Allen made plays throwing the ball. He looked good. He was spreading it around. The defense absolutely shut down the Seahawks run game, and the pass game didn't get much either. No DK Metcalf, I get that, but still, in every phase of the game, they played really, really well today. And Seattle made some mistakes you shouldn't make. Botched shotgun snap on their 3-yard line. That probably cost them a shot at a touchdown to kick a field goal instead. 4th and goal, they decide to go for it. Lineman steps on Geno Smith's foot. He trips. They get, the Bills get the stop there. So the Seattle didn't do themselves any favors. Let's put it that way. But I thought this was more about, this is the Bills at their best. They can do everything pretty well. They can beat you in different ways. And we talked about that. You get into the playoffs, and all of a sudden you got to beat this team. Like the way we try to beat teams every week might not work. That team is really well coached. They're obviously a good team. They're in the playoffs. They might take that away from you. Do you have a counterpunch? And really, for the first time in a long time with these Bills, I think we could say, yes, they have a counterpunch. It can win on defense. It can win running the ball. It doesn't have to be all Josh Allen miracle balls out there. This Bills team is really good all around and deserving of one of the top five spots in the NFL right now.
I'm usually really hard on teams that lose games like this. I'm not right now hard on Seattle because, to your point, it felt like a day where Seattle, frankly, pissed off the football gods, and everything they did was just going to be wrong. And so if I'm the Seahawks, I burn this tape, I never look at it again, and I move about my season. There's plenty of football left. The bigger part of this is the Bills. Much like we talk about how broken the Chiefs are, the Bills are sitting here right now 6-2. They're sitting here right now with a 3.5 game lead in the AFC East, and they're taking on the Dolphins next. Like, the Bills have a chance to essentially lock this division up in the next several weeks. And
it might be by Thanksgiving, which is crazy. We thought this was going to be a good division. No, Bills are going to win this thing by 5-6 games. It's nuts.
Another team that we thought was going to be great that struggled today, Houston takes down Indy 23-20. Frank, I hate it when we sit there and say, well, you never know what's going to happen in division rivalry matchups. This felt like two teams that just they were fighting, scratching and clawing. It was not the best day for Anthony Richardson. Several times it wasn't the best day for either team, but the Texans get the big 23-20 win, and they have now swept the Colts for only the second time in franchise history. That's a big deal for where the Texans are right now.
Yeah, I agree. First, let's get to the Colts, because we got to talk about Anthony Richardson, who's just kind of bottomed out as a quarterback today. First half, he was 2 of 15. One of those plays was a 69-yard touchdown. He had 82 yards at half. That 69-yard touchdown is a pass any quarterback in NFL history should make. There's a coverage breakdown. Josh Downs is running wide open. He hits him. Great. Good job. But it wasn't like some great quarterbacking play. He just hit a wide open receiver with no other Texans defender in the entire screen. Like, okay, good. The rest of it was just garbage. Like, he looked terrible in this game. To the point of, I'm like, if Steichen doesn't bench him at halftime, he's doing his team a disservice. And you look back and you say, like, and I get, we've talked about this whole, like, Richardson's a future, but the present right now, Joe Flacco plays this entire game, they probably win. I don't think Joe Flacco goes 2 of 15 in the first half. Like, Anthony Richardson gave them no chance to win this game by just bombing the first half. Now, second half, he was a little bit better. His numbers look better by the end, but I don't know, man. I don't know what this Colts team does, because right now Richardson needs so much work. It's not even close. Again, a great win for the Texans. I don't think they look great in this game. If you are going against a quarterback that goes 2 of 15 and throws a backbreaking interception at the end of the first half, you probably should win by more than the field goal. They couldn't seem to put them away. But again, hard division game. They got the win. They did what they had to do. Joe Mixon continues to be pretty unbelievable for this team. What an acquisition he was. Probably another problem with the Bengals, by the way, giving up Joe Mixon when they shouldn't have. But again, this game to me was more about just this ongoing dilemma with the Colts of, you have a quarterback who's completing, he's probably down like 45% on the season now, and that's just not professional level football.
Yeah, the problem is, and I've been big since we started the show about, hey, you're going to need 2 or 3 years for Anthony Richardson to become the best that he can be. I've been a big statement guy in that, and I do believe that not playing last year really hurt the progression of where they want to be. But to your point, right now, the passing statistics at this point, 6 games in, he's played 6 games. He has completed 44.4% of his passes with 4 touchdowns and 7 interceptions.
Unbelievable in a modern NFL. It's unbelievable. It's not even great in the prehistoric NFL. Like,
he's regressing.
It's bad football. He's regressing bad. And it just seems like he's pressing a little bit, and you do reach a point where you're like, maybe he does need to sit down, just take the pressure off. Watch Joe for a few weeks. And he had a line today, and I don't want to misquote him, but he came out of the game when we thought he was hurt again, and he's like, no, I was just really tired. Like, what? Yeah, okay, Rich. Like,
you look at Houston, first game of the year, completed 47% of his passes. Then 2 straight games with 50%. Then Pittsburgh, where he only threw 4 balls, 75% on that one. Then you got Miami, 41%, and today, 31%. If you look at what this really looks like over the course of the season, I mean, this isn't a joke. This isn't a mistake of a 44% completion percentage. This is who he is right now. Yeah. And if you are regressing to that moment, now we got to ask ourselves, Shane Steichen has to do what's right for his team. But I also got to look at Shane Steichen and say, what's going wrong with the development process of Anthony Richardson that he is not getting better? And if it's the prospect, if it's the coaching, I don't know. But what we know is he's not getting better. And they didn't draft him where they drafted him with Steichen as their head coach from the outset to not improve the level of play. I will give him time. I think he needs time. That's fair. But during that time, you've got to see a glimmer of hope. And right now, I don't think there's any hope.
No, not right now. I mean, again, everybody's going to be like, well, Josh Allen. I guess, like, there's a reason everybody points to Josh Allen.
Exception, not the rule.
Because he's the one guy. Like, yeah, nobody, at least Josh Allen was in like the mid-50s at some point. We're talking about Anthony Richardson has to be 15% better as an NFL quarterback to just be tied for the worst completion percentage in the league. Like, he's got so far to go. 59.5%, Jacoby Brissett coming in. It was basically the next guy up from Anthony Richardson before today. He's got so far to go that it's hard to win NFL football games when you can't even count on your quarterback to complete 50% of passes week in, week out. It's hard to function that way.
All right, speaking of bad quarterback play, New Orleans barely had a quarterback. The Chargers beat them 26-8. This was a weird, ugly football game. It was 3-2 for a long time. That is not a misspeak by me. It's one of the ugliest games I can remember in a long time. New Orleans can't generate much. I honestly, Frank, I felt bad for Alvin Kamara. He was still running hard. He's got no help. No help whatsoever. So, I mean, kudos, good on the Chargers for getting a win. You got to win these games. But, man, the Saints are absolutely falling apart in front of our very eyes.
Can't believe it based on where they were early this season. Obviously, the injuries play some role, but not all of it. Dennis Allen's seat's getting really hot. I got nothing else to say about this game. It was just, again, Chargers, good on you for winning that game. Saints, you're really, really bad and unwatchable. And I don't think the Chargers are very good, to be honest. But I just think the Saints are right now playing like one of the three worst teams of football. And they'll get Derek Carr back soon. Who cares? Like, it's not like Derek Carr is turning this team from what we saw today into something that could be a playoff contender. This is just a really bad Saints team.
Speaking of bad quarterback play, Bryce Young gets back in. Denver wins 28-14 over Carolina. And look, I mean, Bryce he's just not very good. I mean, we can try and make this into something, but it's just not like I watched Bryce play today. And every time you watch him run around and just see him try and force the ball, inaccuracy is still an issue when he's running around. Like, bad decisions were still an issue. He was getting collapsed in the pocket. I just watched and thought, if the goal was to get Bryce to suddenly improve on things by sitting on the sideline, that goal was not met. I don't know how I could possibly look at Bryce right now and say, yep, they have a quarterback that belongs in this league. It doesn't feel like he does right now.
Yeah, I still think you got to kind of go with him because sure. What else you got? Like, I mean, Andy Dalton, we know what he is, and he's going to be somewhat more competent for your offense, but who cares at this point? I thought the most interesting thing coming out of this game was the fourth quarter, Sean Payton ran two trick plays. They're up 28-7 on the Panthers, and they ran two trick plays. One was a fake field goal, I believe, and one was a receiver pass with like 4 minutes left. I think it was Troy Franklin threw it, and I was just like, what's the beef here? I don't care. Like, go for it. If you could run trick plays, I've already said that. There's no running up score in the NFL. You sign up for 60 minutes of football. As Andy Reid would say, time's yours. What do you want to do? You want to run trick plays in the entire fourth quarter? Go ahead. Whatever. But I'm just sitting in my head thinking, what's Peyton's beef with the Panthers? Where does this come from? Because that was not normal. Like, something was going on there. Maybe it was Evero, the Panthers defensive coordinator. I guess they might have had a not amicable split when Peyton got the job. I don't know what it was, but it was like, why are they trying to rub it in on the Panthers here? It was a little weird, but yeah, the Panthers are just not an NFL football team right now. They're not. This is not a professional operation in any way. Offense, defense, whatever. And everybody's like, oh, well, Dave Canales is bad. Well, they went 2-15 last year, and they won 2 games by 5 points, and that has nothing to do with Canales. It's just a bad organization, and they're not going anywhere anytime soon. Is it going to be bad for a while?
As it stands right now, according to Tankathon, they'd have the first pick in the draft. I can't believe I'm saying that. By the way, if you want to know how bad some of the league is right now, because of bye weeks, I can't. Some teams are 2-5, some teams are 2-6. Right now, there are 10 teams in the NFL that have only won 2 games this year.
Really?
Amazingly,
I hadn't thought about it that way.
New York Giants at 2-5. If the draft were today, the New York Giants at 2-5 would have the 10th pick in the draft.
That's crazy.
That's how many bad teams there are. Speaking of bad teams, my beloved Raiders got beat by Kansas City 27-20. Frank, you remember earlier this year when we argued about why the Raiders needed to go for 4th and 1 because they couldn't believe they punted in plus territory.
I got that text from you, Fitz. Yes.
And I said at the time, I was like, look, this team cannot pick up short yardage. This was a one-score game late. And the Raiders picked the ball off inside the 5-yard line. They returned it to the 5-yard line. I looked at my buddy that I was sitting next to, and I said, the problem is he didn't get in the end zone. Because if Trayvon Merrick, who had intercepted the ball, gotten in the end zone, I'd have felt pretty good. He didn't. And I knew that meant the game was over. And what do you know? They run 4 plays for -5 yards. They turn the ball over on downs. Before you know it, they essentially don't get the ball back. Kansas City ends up absolutely dominating time of possession. Kansas City wins 27-20. The Raiders are the worst team I've ever seen in my life in any sport, or I should say at any level of football. They are the worst team I've ever seen in my life in short yardage situation. They cannot convert. 4th and 1, 4th and 2. It's impossible. So
it's hard to watch. It's hard to watch. The Chiefs, kudos to the Chiefs defense. That's what's driving the bus here. That Chiefs defense is awesome. And again, we go back to I don't know what to make of the Chiefs. They're obviously undefeated. They're really, really good. The defense is awesome. But this was a game, we talked about this on the Friday pod, where you were like, man, the Chiefs are going to put it on the Raiders here. It's going to be,
thought they win by 40.
Ugly because of all the Kermit the Frog jokes and the victory laps over last year's winning and Arrowhead and blah, blah, blah. And for most of this game, it was like the Raiders could win this game. Like they're right in it. Like the Chiefs, that was the key sequence when Raiders couldn't punch it in after the interception. Before that, it was like the Raiders could win this game, and you just start to wonder. Like you just never see the Chiefs just blast anybody. That's kind of been their DNA the last few years. They don't win a lot of games by 20 points. That's why they're not great against the spread, by the way. But yeah, I just don't know what to make of the Chiefs. They're obviously good. Obviously Super Bowl contender, obviously could win another Super Bowl. But every week I watch them and I'm like, yeah, I guess. Like, I don't feel like I'm watching the 1976 Raiders or anything. Like, this isn't one of the great all-time teams I'm watching, I guess, but they're on pace to do something all-time great and winning a 3rd Super Bowl. So I just don't know what to make of the Chiefs. Eye test-wise, they don't look great. The offense does not look great. The defense is good. The defense is really, really good. But it's just a strange Chiefs season to me where they're undefeated, but I don't. If you would have told me the 2-time defending champion Kansas City Chiefs are undefeated right now, you would have thought wow, 2007 Patriots style, they're just beating everybody, and this is the reign of Patrick Mahomes. It's not that. It's every week you're just kind of left a little lukewarm by this Chiefs performance.
I keep saying this. I don't believe, and this makes no sense, but I will say this. I don't believe that the Kansas City Chiefs are a great football team. I also believe the Kansas City Chiefs are going to win the Super Bowl. It just doesn't matter. Doesn't matter that it's not great.
You're probably right.
It's just the way it works. Monday night, we got the Giants at Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh favored by 6. This is just an ugly game to be stuck with on Monday night. Daniel Jones versus Russell Wilson.
Yeah.
Huzzah. What do you got?
I'm going to use this as my pulpit to tell the NFL. I'm going to look into your eyes right now, Roger, and say, trust me when I say this. We don't want to watch the Giants in primetime anymore. As much as you guys seem to think we want to watch the Giants in primetime 5, 6, 7, 8 times a year, it seems, we don't want more Giants football in our lives. Stick them at 1 o'clock Eastern time on Sunday. We'll all be okay. Never seeing them on Monday night again. I don't need to see Daniel Jones and the Giants in primetime. The NFL has this infatuation, we're all sitting around going, oh my God, the Giants are on primetime tonight. Let's tune in. No, we hate this team. They're not fun to watch in any way, shape, or form. They're going to get blasted by the Pittsburgh Steelers, who are the far superior team. I don't even want to watch this game. I call for just a ban of the Giants in primetime for 10 years to make up for all these stupid extra games we get the Giants in primetime. Giants are on Thanksgiving this year. Why? What are we doing? I don't want to watch more of this Giants team. They're awful.
This is the thing that frustrates me. I know New York is a massive media market, but stop sticking bad football teams on national games. Treat the Jets and the Giants
need to do this.
The same way that you treat every other team.
The Giants are going to be bad. I don't think all of us. I didn't know the Giants were going to be this bad. You did. I didn't.
I understand that. Yeah.
I knew the Giants were going to be bad. We all knew the Giants were going to be bad. They're bad. Don't shove them down our throats anymore. I don't want to watch this Giants team anymore.
Yeah. Even New Yorkers are going to skip this game because they can watch the World Series instead. Stone, doing great work behind the scenes. We always appreciate him for the great work he does putting this show together for you every single week. Rate, review, subscribe, and I'm going to learn how to talk. That's going to be the next thing. Follow us on social media. We'll be back Wednesday with Jory. I hope your team won. I hope you're having a better season than I am. I hope you are feeling the glory of victory tonight. But most importantly, we appreciate you guys taking the time to listen. Thanks so much.